This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Welcome, Talk Catholic, the website.com, your host, Tim Kilcoyne. No agendas here, just the straight and narrow, through Mary to Jesus, the Catholic faith proclaimed and preserved. Hope to see you here every week. TalkCatholic.com with Tim Kilcoyne. It is fall 2024. I think we know what that means. Chaos on the horizon. There's an election coming up. And everybody in religious ed says, oh, well, we can't talk political. Oh, indeed we can if we know where the devil is. But I will try to tame my fervor and keep it focused on basic principles of Catholic social justice that have not been rewritten by the revisionists. That's the buzz phrase of our time, social justice. So I'll be enunciating specific principles of Catholic social justice in the days ahead so that we can try to gather together a framework for our decision making when we go in that voting booth very soon and honor our duty to be Catholic Christian citizens under God and vote. Whatever you do, don't sit home. It would not be far-fetched to say it could be the biggest election in world history, not just ours. And one of the phenomenons that is upon us these days that did not exist in so many decades prior is this thing called the New World Order. And if we are to try to preserve our country, and I do hope that's still the goal, and be patriotic, because remember, God and patriotism do go together. Who are the saints that I pray to most specifically every day? St. Thomas More, St. Thomas Becket, St. Joan of Arc, St. Isaac Jogues, St. Kateri, St. Maximilian Kolbe, and of course, Our Lady of the Americas, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And never forget St. Joseph in consecrating this great country to him. Just take out that movie Patton once this fall, and we have to understand who's on the side of the New World Order and what kind of language are they using to dupe us in order to get our vote, and then they do something different. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in the time of the Trojan horse. There's a lot of people on the inside that look really different on the outside. Beware. And that goes for church leadership, absolutely. So what is this thing, the New World Order? And what were some of the moral trends or immoral trends that led to it, to its evolution? And so I go to one of the great priests of our time. He was a favorite of Mother Angelica for sure, Father Joseph Esper of the Archdiocese of Detroit, Michigan. And he's written some powerful books in recent years, one being Spiritual Dangers of the 21st Century. That will get your antenna up. And Defiance, the Antichrist of History and Their Doomed War Against the Church. And also After the Darkness, amongst other great books. Father Esper is more than a prophet amongst us in our time, and I absolutely want to share a little bit of his thinking before we get back to Mother Mary Angelica and our book review, Answers, Not Promises. And remember, in recent shows, I've made comment relative to a discovery of a bishop in a parking lot at a grocery store, where when I made the comment to him, Your Excellency, regarding the homily, they've got it down to a semantic science that they can go 15 minutes in a homily and not say one word about the world in which we live. That is unacceptable. And that silence is most telling. Well, it is unacceptable. And juxtapose that with my interview with Father Frank Pavone earlier, first Saturday of September, where he said, how is it that you're not supposed to go political when one party represents the majority of your values in their right hierarchical order? How do you do that, he says. Indeed, Father Pavone. and the very reason he's in spiritual jail right now, by a hierarchy over in the Vatican that have their own political agenda that they stay silent about. And I made that comment to Father Pavone, by their silence ye shall know them. Father Esper breaks the silence. He says, we no longer live in a world in which Christians are thrown to wild beasts in arenas full of bloodthirsty spectators, or in which defenseless monasteries and villages are ravaged and destroyed by hordes of horse-mounted invaders. And while wars will likely still be unleashed by power-mad dictators, the greater danger now comes from groups of calm, civilized men and women capable of hiding their contempt for religion and hatred of the church behind a veneer of forced politeness. In other words, the Trojan horse. The devil without the horns you can see, usually very soft-spoken, using very mild language, almost as if holy. Indeed, the invisible enemy. Father Esper says, international organizations, government agencies, military units and security forces, political and financial institutions, societal movements and cultural trends, scientific research and technological applications, and even secret societies, Freemasonry, all have a profound impact on today's world, and all are capable of being used, manipulated, and abused by Satan and his servants, including ultimately the Antichrist. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, we have to have a laity that has armor, that has ammunition called the Word of God. Those truth tellers amongst us that are not going to have any of it, and they're going to lay it all out on a platter. Because the devil is not just in the church, as he well is, but he's in all spheres. Every sphere of knowledge has goodness and evil. And you have to sift through the weeds to make sure you know which is which. And right now, we're in such a time that it's murky. That's scary. He goes on. It cannot be denied that Christendom is no longer truly Christian. Nations and societies built on a Judeo-Christian foundation, including the United States of America, have largely abandoned or at least severely degraded their moral and religious heritage. Our secular world increasingly denies the reality and necessity of its creator. In the words of John Paul II, we cannot ignore the insistent return of the denial of Christ. Again and again we encounter the signs of an alternative civilization, New World Order, to that built on Christ as cornerstone. A civilization which, even if not explicitly atheist, is at least positivistic and agnostic, since it is built upon the principle of thinking and acting as if God did not exist. This approach can easily be recognized in the modern so-called scientific, or rather scientistic mentality, and it can be recognized in literature, especially the mass media. To live as if God did not exist means to live outside the parameters of good and evil, outside the context of values derived from God. It is claimed that man himself can decide what is good or bad, and this program is widely promoted in all sorts of ways. Father Esper says the Holy Father noted that this practical atheism, and I may say Mother Mary Angelica always used to refer to that term. She said on a show she thought that the whole world was under practical atheism at the current time, and that was 20 years ago. Father says practical atheism has very tangible and highly undesirable results: divorce, free love, contraception, abortion, euthanasia, and in the form of genetic experimentation, the manipulation of life. There's a widespread assumption that anything promising certain benefits to humanity should be attempted if scientifically possible, regardless of any moral or religious objections. This 21st century mindset is backed up by enormous financial and political resources, and as the Pope observed, faced with all of this, one may legitimately ask whether this is not another form of totalitarianism subtly concealed under the appearances of democracy, i.e., communists, but they don't call themselves communists, Marxists, but they don't call themselves Marxists, atheists, but they don't call themselves atheists. This is what he's referring to. Regarding contemporary American society, Father writes, as St. José Maria Escriva noted, the world thrives on lies, even 20 centuries after the truth came among men. This describes a society unwilling to confront the reality of what happens in an abortion, instead attempting to disguise or massage the truth by calling it a termination of a pregnancy or a procedure, while framing the entire discussion in terms of freedom of choice. Other moral issues, such as euthanasia, are serviced by euphemisms claiming death with dignity and the need to preserve the quality of life, while gullible voters are convinced to support morally objectionable procedures such as embryonic stem cell research for their supposed benefits to society. At the same time, America has seen prominent politicians organize cover-ups, commit perjury in an effort to hide the violation of their oaths of office, business executives attempt to deny or excuse widespread corporate corruption, news media engage not only in selective reporting, but outright distortions and advocacy journalism in a blatantly partisan manner. Scientific agencies manipulate statistics to create the appearance of certain crises while adopting an air of objectivity and superiority. Religious leaders grievously abuse the trust of their congregation, and various entertainers, sports figures, and other celebrities and public figures overstate achievements, lie about their problems, or otherwise rearrange the truth for their own benefit. It's little wonder that the number of Americans expressing trust in government, news media, organized religion, and other cultural institutions verge on an all-time low. But even so, people continue to allow themselves to be deceived. The devil has a field day with those who will not subject themselves to the authority of divine truth. As Scripture warns, anyone who is so progressive as not to remain in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Chapter 3, John, verse 9. Those who worship the idea of human progress, regardless of the cost involved and the moral restrictions to be violated, are in a very real sense possessed by the spirit of the Antichrist. I'll continue to read from this particular chapter and certain other segments in the book in the days ahead, but basically he's setting up the framework for the New World Order, which is grounded in atheism. And it's not your old-fashioned atheism. The guy or gal that is just open and honest that they really don't believe, and they're kind of sincere about it, but they'd like to hear what you have to say. They might be willing to change. Let's hear the facts of the supernatural. That's not the bird that Father is referring to. He's referring to this new atheist who's cunning, undercover, more so like the evil one himself, who pretends that he's not an atheist, but he lives as an atheist. He or she subscribes to no morality, but doesn't want you to know it. And that's a lot worse, to try to figure out who's who and what are they telling us. And can you believe anything that they have to say? This is the political climate and religious climate and every other kind of climate. And indeed, yeah, we need climate change, but it ain't about the earth. It's this climate change that we need to change ASAP, where we stress the importance of transparent honesty always. Oh, your word is your honor and character. My goodness, give me my last cigarette. Can we just get back to the rule of law, or in spiritual circles as Catholics, magisterial teaching, and stop with you make your own reality by making up your own language and I'll decide whether it's a chair or a table? No. Let's get back to sanity here, and let's get back to basic concepts that keep societies together. And they start with belief. They start with faith. And this business that we're to keep our faith out of the public square because that's what our founding fathers wanted. That's not what the founding fathers wanted. They didn't want the establishment of a religion, but they didn't want the elimination of religious discourse or the elimination of the public square for debate. Let's hear the issues. You think you got the truth? Let's hear it. And you weigh it up, and I'll put my facts up against yours, and then we'll vote. We're living in a time when one side doesn't want to do that. Can you imagine a time when a politician prefers obscurity because they don't want to be caught with no clothes, no truth? And I think you know who it is. So we got to just stress commandments, the commandments of God. And thou shalt not steal covers all kinds of illegitimate dishonesties and deceptions. We got to take a real hard look at that particular commandment. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not engage in detraction or calumny, slander. Thou shalt not commit adultery. I think we have to look into the private lives of these politicians, these public figures who are trying to get our trust, but we don't know anything about their life privately. If there's anything that will tell us if they're legit to vote for, it's to find out something about their character behind closed doors. Oh, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we must go political, or we're going to be under the greatest duping for the next 100 years, called, as Pope Benedict would claim, the dictatorship of relativism, which indeed is a dictatorship. I finished with Father Esper quoting David Kapelian in his book, The Marketing of Evil. The steady moral decline of American society over the past 50 years is no accident. Within the space of our lifetimes, much of what Americans once almost universally abhorred has been packaged, perfumed, gift-wrapped, and sold to us as though it had great value. By skillfully playing on our deeply felt national values of fairness, generosity, and tolerance, these marketers have persuaded us to embrace as enlightened and noble that which all previous generations since America's founding regarded as grossly self-destructive, in a word, evil. Ladies and gentlemen, remember again, the devil doesn't come with horns. He comes with glitter and glamour and beautiful packaging. Catholic citizens, let's not go there. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. We will refer to Mother Angelica the Great and her wisdom. Answers, not promises, on the other side. Now, here's some perfect music for the diabolical political climate from the Benedictines of Mary, Queen of Apostles. Indeed, Gregorian chant, that which we're supposed to hear at your local parish. And I play it in my home at nighttime for protection. Well, we're in the chapter again, Why Won't God Answer My Prayers? And Mother was talking about the gimme mentality of prayer, that petitionary mode. I want, I need, I want, I need. And Mother said, don't stop asking, but recognize that the asking itself over and over and over might be precisely what God is trying to do in your soul. Bring you closer to him through persevering prayer. And she follows up with a story by Sister Bridge McKenna. She says, a woman from Louisiana called the live show one evening when our guest was Sister Bridge McKenna, who has a healing ministry. The woman had an 11-year-old boy who was paralyzed from the neck down. For 5 years, I have prayed for his healing. Mother and I have asked for the courage to stick with it. I've received more strength than I ever knew was possible, and I know and believe in my heart that my son is a perfect human being. But should I keep praying for his recovery? Sister Bridge answered with a story. She told the woman about a family of 7 from the Midwest. Their youngest child was a little boy who had a brain tumor. In her beautiful Irish accent, she explained the doctors had thrown up their hands. No hope, they said. But the family continued to pray for the boy's recovery. Every night before bed, they would gather in Tommy's room and pray for him together. 2 years passed, and the boy grew worse. God made up his mind, the father said, and he stopped praying completely. But the mother and the children persevered. Slowly, Tommy started showing improvement. Day by day, he started to get better. And today, he is as normal and healthy a child as you have ever seen. It was the father who told me this story, Sister Bridge continued. If Tommy had been healed instantly, he said, the other children would never have known about the power of prayer and the need for sticking with it, and neither would I. God permitted this child's condition only because he knew that this family, all 7 of them, would be transformed by it. So always keep praying for your needs no matter what. Never ever stop asking God for his intervention and his mercy. Your relationship with God is unique. He has a mission reserved for you that no other person can accomplish. Everything that happens to you is an opportunity to fulfill that mission, which you probably won't completely understand until you get to heaven. But to begin to understand your mission, it's important that you listen to God as he speaks to you each day. Am I telling you to look for him in a prophetic dream or vision? No. So please don't spend your life waiting for a big mystical experience, because that isn't half as important as the way God speaks to you in everyday life. He's not going to appear in your living room and sit down and chit-chat with you, but you will encounter him and his will for you in little ways, in whispers, and in other people and events. He speaks to you constantly, and it's a matter of practice to be able to hear what he is saying to you. If you are praying for an illness to be healed, his answer is going to be pretty obvious. If it is healed immediately, his answer was yes. If it takes a turn for the worse, his answer for a physical healing may be no. But what if everything just freezes and the illness lingers and lingers in some halfway zone? What is God telling you then? He can then be assured that although the person is not physically healed, there is a tremendous amount of spiritual and emotional healing going on in the individual. Additionally, this can also benefit the individual's loved ones, preparing them for whatever God's will is in a situation. We all have worries and concerns about ourselves and other people. When there is pain, especially another person's pain, we want a resolution immediately, and we see only one course of acceptable action. Take the pain away. Help me find a job. Bring my wife back. Heal my son's drug problem. But God is answering your prayer for this resolution in many ways, through many voices, and even through his silence. Listen to him. His answer may not be the answer you want or expect right now, but he is telling you something at this very moment. Open your heart to him and let him in. Well, I'm thinking of this past summer, this 3rd week of August to be exact, which is always the time of our family vacation. But there's one problem. I'm a single guy that never got married and was the baby of the family. And all my siblings grew up and got married and had their own families. So that family vacation that was just a hallmark of my childhood, well, ain't what it used to be, as they say. But then I thought to myself, in honor of my parents, who took such care in planning out that family vacation every year, year in, year out, and who were just sticklers about getting it right for us as kids, I honor them by going on the family vacation with Mom and Dad, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and all the saints. And I go through not all of the routine, but I make sure that I spend some serious quality time at the beach, going to a few nice restaurants, a little gift shopping, etc., in great gratitude, and more so in offering up the changing times that I'm so much a part of relative to my family. And again, our family constitutes a bigger family now of individual families. And yes, on the one hand, I yearn to see them all on that same family vacation. But if I don't, I will take them on my back and I will offer up in reparation and atonement any particular problems that they may be going through and just give it to our Lord in a special atoning way. And this is my way of persevering. Too often alone in Gethsemane and not asking or waiting to see something immediately, i.e. my family, but rather just keep at it, stay with it, and offer up to our Lord something that he can do great with it. And I was talking to a gentleman friend of mine that on the phone about St. Gemma just this evening, and also a book called This Tremendous Lover by Don Eugene Boylan, who talked very specifically about this perseverance is what it's all about, because it's the effort that God is looking at. And it's not whether you get to the goal line. St. Gemma never really, she wanted to be a Passionist nun. Well, she never really got there. And St. Gabriel, Our Lady of Sorrows, was kind of in a similar situation where he wanted to be a Jesuit and never reached his goal. But they ended up saints. So it was all about the quality of their effort with what God had given them. St. Bridget of Sweden, who we just talked about just a few weeks ago on our Saint of the Month, it was said that she never accomplished virtually anything. She ended up a saint. Think about it this week. And don't think about the Pope's latest words about all paths lead to God relative to various religions. That's not a truism. We'll do another show on that one later. This is WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. Have a wonderful week. God bless.
Experience the incredible story of a woman who Time magazine named the most influential Catholic woman in the United States. Rita Rizzo, the future Mother Angelica, grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Canton, Ohio during the Great Depression. Rita's father abandoned the family before she was 5 years old. Her early years of trial were compounded by a debilitating illness until she was healed by Jesus through a woman named Rhoda Wise. That healing set her life on a course that would ultimately change the world. Learn the amazing story of Rita Rizzo at the Mother Angelica Museum in her hometown of Canton, Ohio. Go to www.motherangelicamuseum.com. Be inspired. Plan your visit now at motherangelicamuseum.com.
Let your light shine. That is what it's all about here at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. But we need to hear your story. You want your voice to be his voice. That is making the faith known to others. Please, my number is 877-625-3727. Tim Kilcoyne, TalkCatholic.com. St. Mother Teresa told us, your ministry is your work right where you are. Grab on to this microphone. God bless.